What happens when you have a man with an appetite for the grim things in life and a justice system that just does not seem to do its job? Well, today you will find out. Nathaniel Levi Bar-Jonah was born David Paul Brown in Worcester, Massachusetts on the 15th of February 1957 at Fairlawn Hospital to parents Philip and Tyra Brown. I always talk about the parents and just give like a little brief little overview of who they are, what they do, whatever. Philip was actually an aircraft mechanic, which I personally think is pretty freaking cool. His mum was just a housewife. That's also cool, I guess. What? She was. At the time, that was kind of like what they did. It's like the 50s, right?
Yeah.
Everything was geared towards the family at this time, and unfortunately, part of that belief was that women had to be at home and clean and cook and raise their family. And don't forget, serve their husband's every need.
Yeah. Cater to your man.
Unfortunately, those were just the times that they lived in. Not the case today. Still food for thought.
I'd kind of be okay with being a housewife.
Yeah. So, just to clarify and avoid confusion, I will be referring to him as Nathaniel from here on out, even though he doesn't actually change his name until much later. If I do chuck a David in there, because that's what I've written, please forgive me. Be gentle. Forgive me.
Ew, David.
Ew, David. Nathaniel, David, Nathaniel. Same guy, same crime. So Nathaniel was the youngest of three that, obviously, his mummy and daddy had.
Youngest of three, okay.
Youngest of three.
Yeah.
And I guess there's a repetition of the number 3 here too, because when he had only been cooked for about 3 months, so his mummy was pregnant for about 3 months, she was stopped at a red light and a car careened into the back of them. And she had to be in like a neck brace for 6 months of that whole situation. And the gestation period for a human is 9 months. So you're spending most of that time in a neck brace.
And looking after 2 other kids.
And looking after your other kids and probably still being Betty Homemaker.
No, thank you.
And then I was thinking to myself, like not in a voice obvi, but I was thinking to myself, I was like, then the cycle repeats, doesn't it? Where there's either a developing child or a young person who has sustained some kind of injury that has grown up to be a problem.
Yeah.
Right? Because we see that happen all the time. I think that like that's very early on. You're not even out of the womb yet and you got a bump on the head. It's a bit crazy. So, after his birth, it's said that he did not like to move much, aside from, not because of injury, because he was just a stubborn little shit. Well, he didn't want to stop eating. So he would only move to get the tit, to get the bottle. Other than that,
Same.
well, I said vibe.
Yeah, that is a vibe.
That is a vibe. And it turns out that babies can also eat for comfort, which I learned through researching this case, so much so that he would cry constantly if he wasn't sleeping or being fed.
Yeah.
I would have flushed him.
Or swallowed him.
It's too late at that point.
Free. Yeah.
I mean, I also lack the lady parts to, like, keep one as a pet and grow it, you know?
And unfortunately, a lot of mothers go through that as well.
Oh, yeah.
Like that scenario, and then looking after 2 other kids. You wonder why we're a bit crazy sometimes.
Oh, yeah. Just get mad, you choke someone, right? Too much.
You go from being a housewife
To a convict. So what do you get when you have a lazy baby that doesn't want to move and only wants to eat, and the only way you can shut the baby up and comfort it is to shovel food in?
a piglet?
A fat little shit.
Yeah.
And what does that do? That restricts his movement even more because there's more fat than muscle. He hasn't developed his muscle yet. So now he moves even less, and even then, when his parents are supposed to like carry him or move him around, they struggle to do it because he's just a little heifer. But that's actually also a good thing because he doesn't like to be touched either. At 3 weeks, he's diagnosed with hydrocephalus. Or when I see it, I'm like, hydrocephalus. It just sounds fancy.
Cephalus.
I will tell you.
Thank you. I was about to say, what is that?
Yeah, it's a collection or an accumulation of like cerebral spinal fluid that builds up within your skull.
Oh.
So, and I'm pretty sure, I think, family, if you're listening, I hope you're not, but family, if you're listening, I'm pretty sure I have a cousin that had that because I remember him going in for surgery so that they could either drain it or they could do something to prevent, or maybe he had like a brain swell. I'm not too sure, but I think, like, I'm not But I mean, he hasn't killed anyone that I know of yet, so.
That's terrifying, though.
Yep. But yeah, so it like builds up the pressure inside your head because obviously there's only so much room in there.
Yeah.
And it can lead to like a bunch of other complications that you
Yeah.
get from it. It didn't say that it could lead to like up to death, but I can imagine it would impact a ton of things. It might impact the way you think or you process. It might impact your memory. It might impact your mobility. It could do a lot of things. Anyway, they end up relocating to Florida, Lantana to be precise, where Daddy worked for McDonnell Douglas Aviation, and this lasted for about 6 years before they decided to head back to Worcester in 1964. Now, there was one story that happened, and I tend to pick out these stories that have some articles that say one thing, others that say another. Some might be extrapolating from a book, some might not be. So there are some things that you might see that are written in only one place that aren't anywhere else, and vice versa. So anything I say today, you might have to grain of salt it, but I believe that it is extrapolated from a book. So make of that what you will.
And let us know by commenting on our episodes.
That's right, because you have the ability and the power.
Okay.
So there was one thing that's reported to have happened conveniently just before they made their way back to their old hometown. And again, grain of salt because it's only in one particular location, but old Nathaniel boy, I didn't write the actual age down, forgive me, but he was either 7 or 9 at the time. I feel like 7's the number. And he had a 5-year-old female neighbor who lived right next door. And he said, "Hey neighbor, do you want to come over to my house? I got a Ouija board for my birthday and I want to go play on it. Do you want to play on the Ouija board with me?" And then she's 5. She doesn't know what a goddamn Ouija board is.
No.
You've told me about your experience with
I've had
them.
experiences. Don't do it.
I agree.
Don't do
Like,
it.
genuinely, don't do it. But
Don't do
also,
it.
I kind of want one, not to use, but just to have like
They're
on a
pretty.
shelf somewhere or something. Yeah, because I really
But also
like them.
don't do it. Don't you do it.
Don't invite them in because that's a really bad idea. Speaking of not inviting people in, I mean, well, we know it's not going to end good anyway, but he invites her over. She comes over free willing. He then decides to take her into the basement and choke her. Luckily, she was screaming and the mother heard, his mother to be precise, and came down and separated and sent her home and stopped it from happening. So she did not die from this interaction, but it would have been absolutely scary if it had happened. And what is strange to me is that there were no real repercussions for his behavior. And I don't mean like no one reported it to the police. I just mean like in the house, there were no real repercussions for him doing what he did. Not succeeding, thank goodness, but doing what he did to the 5-year-old girl that was next door. And the reason that's odd to me is his dad was a strict disciplinarian who really, really, really liked to use the old leather belt. She was too stunned to speak. And he would have his little daily, weekly meetings with this leather belt because he was also a kleptomaniac who liked to steal things from his other siblings and kind of any other kid, be it in the neighborhood or at kindy, school, whatever, wherever he's going. If he could take something, he would.
Do you think that maybe the mother didn't want to see him get punished?
So she covered it?
Like maybe the mother didn't want to see him get punished. Yeah, so she covered it. Because to me, it's like, as a woman, I know it's back then, but you wouldn't promote a man, like a boy, strangling a girl, you would assume. But then if the dad's so strict, to me, that's like she doesn't want to tell because the punishment would be severe.
But the other reason that he used to beat Nathaniel a lot is because he didn't want him to grow up queer.
Ah, okay, yeah,
So
yeah, okay.
it could be that his actions were toward a female.
Didn't know that's where we were going today, so yep, okay, cool.
That's because you keep interrupting me and talking over top of everything I say. Oh yeah, because apparently, I mean, remember, this is back in the 50s. I think they can beat it out of you. There are still conversion. Never mind. We'll move on because that's not today's case. Anyway, so just to touch on something I said earlier, there are literally many, many, many stories that show up in places and not in others. Like this next part where there was like ransom notes that were made out of magazine cuttings, which he obviously created himself to entice 2 young boys. I can't remember how old he was at the time. I think he may have been like a teenager, like an early teenager. And it was to invite these 2 boys to a cemetery to meet with him, right? And he offered them $20 and a surprise. Spoiler alert, it's not a pony.
No. No.
Nothing happened because their mother found out. I don't know how far the thing went. I don't know if they left the house. I don't know if she just found the thing. I don't know what the thing... I don't know, but I guess she's the real hero here, and she stopped anything from happening. But the thing that I thought was kind of amazing, again, if this story is true, is that she did not press charges. She did not want to see the boy get into any trouble. Her suggestion at what had happened or was going to happen was for him to talk to a psychologist because he probably needs help that the justice system cannot provide him.
Okay.
So she seemed kind of cool about the fact that she could literally have lost her sons.
Yeah.
Maybe she wasn't thinking, because again, it's the 50s, maybe she wasn't thinking that it was going to get to that, but that's like probably a little more chill than I would go, and I would kill him. And there was also a story saying that he tried to abduct a 9-year-old, and her name was Mary Patrone. Love the name Patrone because I like tequila. And Patrone. And this was in 1974, but that he let her go when she screamed and resisted. So I don't think that anything actually happened, but it was in the process of like kind of being about to happen. Again, I can't really corroborate this, even though she does come back into the story like later. I still don't really have a lot to back it up entirely. Which brings us to 1975. David is 17 now, and he impersonates a policeman, because that's always a good idea.
Oh, yay.
And that's never going to end badly.
Oh, no.
No. He did this so that he could abduct an 8-year-old boy who was on his way to school, and he choked him and sexually assaulted him before beating him. But there's like, this is where the stories kind of diverge. Like both of them say that this thing kind of happened, but there's one story that says someone had witnessed the abduction take place and reported it to the police. The police finally located this guy's car, called for backup. They found this kid in the car, close to death, covered in his own urine and feces, and just beaten. There's another article that doesn't explain what had happened, but just that the boy later ran into Nathaniel working at McDonald's and recognized him and then reported it and was like, that's the guy who did that to me. Either way, what happens to Nathaniel? All he gets is a slap on the wrist, and he gets told that he just has to do 1 year probation.
Oh.
Which means he doesn't get locked up. He's just literally on probation, which means you're on your best behavior.
Even though this is the second.
First reported.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. Do you think because they tread so much around man on man, even if it is a child, to add it's pretty much an adult?
Possibly.
Okay. Yep.
And he would strike again a few days before graduation. So remember, he's still like pretty young. And he drove to Connecticut dressed up as a policeman once more, but this time abducted a 9-year-old girl. And I believe that during the assault, so he doesn't care if it's male or female, he likes children.
Oh, okay, yep.
And I believe during the assault, she started vomiting and had a seizure, so she started convulsing. He didn't know what to do, so he drove to the side of a road and just threw her onto the concrete, like onto the sidewalk, and then drove off. People witnessed this happen. They took his plates down and they reported it.
Good.
Now, this is gonna make you mad.
Oh, I can't wait.
So he was only about 59 minutes away from home, right? He's in Connecticut, yeah. But it's a different state. So that news of what happened didn't actually go back to his PO. If it did, he would have found himself back in the slammer quicker than boop, straight back in there. He didn't even get charged with anything.
Is that also because back then they didn't share info?
Well, it's the 70s.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that they would share it really outside of their county, let alone outside of their state.
Because do they do it now?
It's all digital now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so messed up.
There's like a digital database, I believe, in America where they will keep it, and that helps them prevent some of that stuff from happening. Because that's why they'll be like, oh, we see that you have a warrant for your arrest in Dade County, you know?
I'm literally just putting 2 and 2 together as to why serial killers went to like different...
In the 70s, yeah. He ends up making it through his entire probation, and he ends up getting released in May of 1976 for that first reported assault. And get this, he even got a letter after completion thanking him for his cooperation in serving his probation.
I've left. That is so messed up.
Yep, and his next reported crime wouldn't be until September of 77. But given what he was like, I mean, the man committed the same crime he was already on parole for while he was on parole. So if that doesn't give you an insight to this man's, like, grim desires, disgusting desires, dark desires, perverted desires, whatever you want to call them, then I really, really don't know what does. So anyway, we find ourselves in September of 77, and I guess that Nathaniel felt like his fake policeman needed a fake promotion, and he was now going to be a fake FBI agent, but like an undercover one?
I wish I could swear right now.
Well, you can, I can cut it out.
There we go, keep going.
And just like his promotion, his crimes were also about to escalate too. So this undercover FBI agent convinced two boys that were leaving the movies. In America, I believe you call those the cinemas. But they were leaving the movies, and I believe it was in Shrewsbury, Massachusetts. And he was like, I don't know what the actual conversation was. I don't have the dialogue, but he got them to get in his vehicle with him, right? And he drives to a secluded area. Just drives off somewhere off the beaten track. He has them in handcuffs. And I don't know if they were in handcuffs before, like just as I got in the car, or when he got to this area in which he was gonna whatever, but they're in handcuffs. Obviously, an assault happens of the special kind. He picks up one of the boys and throws him in the trunk of his car and locks it. And I apologize. He then goes back to the other boy and starts jumping on his chest as hard as he can.
Oh my gosh.
One thing you may not realize about Nathaniel is that his fatness as a child and his issues with food followed him all the way through his adulthood. This man weighed between 275 and 375 pounds. So I'm sure you can imagine that he was a big bitch, and they were not. For people outside of the US, for like pretty much the rest of the world, that's between 125 and 136 kilo, jumping on like a very specific area on a child's body. So once he was like, all right, you're dead, I'm gonna go, and I don't know what his intention was with the other boy that was in the car, he obviously took off. But unlike our normal cases, there is a little bit of ray of sunshine in this one, because we have a little bit of good news. The boy wasn't dead, he was simply unconscious. So he comes to, and he goes and he finds help and tells them what happened. They end up locating the car. The boy is still in the trunk and still alive, and he gets arrested. But unlike the first time, he is actually charged for the crime, and he is convicted for attempted murder. And thank folk, he gets the maximum sentence, which is between 18 to 25 years. So finally, whoop, 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 some justice is served.
Le justice.
Le justice.
Le de justice came to serve. Good.
Slay. She's serving. Anywho, so he has to serve his time at the Massachusetts Correctional Institution, but then gets moved to Bridgewater State Hospital to undergo observation.
Okay, for why?
Because Bridgewater was a treatment center for sexually dangerous offenders because of sexual fantasies that he indeed would share with his psychologists. And it's at this point, obviously after he divulges the things that he would like to do, that they decided that his stay at Bridgewater was going to be a permanent one.
Good.
Good.
But your face says otherwise.
My face says a ton of things. Dull. It's not my fault.
You pretty face.
I'm just Sasha.
Sasha.
And it's not actually until March of 84 that he changes his name to Nathaniel Benjamin Levi Bar-Jonah. Question time. Why do you think, proffer your brilliance here, why do you think he changed his name?
So that he could run away from everything he did?
Wrong. He told people that he changed his name because he wanted to be discriminated against and persecuted as a Jew.
What?
Because remember, like back then, people were pretty anti-Semitic and they weren't even shy about it because it wasn't like living in today.
What?
Yep.
Okay, not what I thought. Okay.
No, and you may have guessed, this fool's not Jewish. His parents aren't even Jewish. His parents are Scandinavian. And they follow an entirely different religion. A Christian-based one, nonetheless, but an entirely different one.
Okay.
Yeah. And past the actual name change, he also didn't do anything for the Jewish community either. He didn't practice, he didn't go to temple, he didn't do anything. As Jewish as he was his name change, and that's it. In 1990, he was re-evaluated by 2 psychologists who ended up testifying that he is no longer a threat to society. So he won a parole hearing.
You shush your mouth.
If I did, the episode ends here, Dal, and it's going to be a very short one. See, here's where also it gets a little bit frustrating. So the judge who held the hearing, I believe it was Superior Court Judge Walter Steele, he ruled that the previous court, the one that judged him, had actually failed to prove that he was dangerous and ordered his release for February of the following year, so 1991.
No, I can't. I cannot.
Then don't.
I won't.
Get on board, girl.
I'm off.
Yes.
Oh.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Because people don't reoffend at all. No way. We've never learnt that in any of our.
It's never
3
happened
years
in
of-
any of our cases. It's
No,
never.
never.
What are you talking about? It doesn't happen.
It's not a thing.
He doesn't have a proven history of doing this stuff over and over again.
At all.
There are some issues, I don't know what it was, but there are some issues that happened, and he wasn't able to actually get paroled until July of that same year, so it was a little bit delayed, but he was still made free. Funny enough, not funny, it was after the judge ruled that he was to be cleared, not of all charges or anything, but that he could be on his way, that he then told a psychologist, I don't know exactly which one it was, that he still fantasized about abducting, murdering, and eating children.
Eating. That's not the only part I took from that. But what? And they still let him go.
Yeah. And funny enough, it wasn't even the first parole hearing that he had tried to have. He had many before that, and they were all refused because of the nature of his violent and sexual fantasies towards children. Alas, that wasn't taken into consideration, nor were his actual crimes, so he was freed.
Why wasn't it taken into, was there a time or just literally...
The previous judge failed beyond all doubt to prove. That's what this judge said. So...
Yeah, okay.
So I don't know. Anyway, not even a month had passed and he found his next victim. However, it was by happenstance. It wasn't planned, not really. He was walking down the street and he happened to see a little boy sitting inside a car, and that car was parked outside of a post office in Oxford, Massachusetts. And he noticed that the boy was alone. So he got in the car. At this point, he's probably on his version of the slimmer end, which was 125 kilo. And he sits on the boy, sits on his chest. Because his you know what his MO is, he just wants to kill kids. He's weird. And he does. To the shock and horror of other people around that are watching him do this, including the kid's mum.
What?
Yeah. So he didn't really look for anything, really. There was no lookout. So his mum, and I believe some of the other people that were around there too, all rushed at him, which scared him off, and he ran away because old wobbly bum doesn't want to be reported to the cops. Because, he's literally just been released from prison, right? A month ago.
That is a man who is not reformed. Literally did not even check his surroundings, saw a little kid, ran.
Yeah.
Straight for it. Oh my gosh.
Straight for it. And the funny thing is, not really funny, but they obviously report this whole thing to the local police, right? Which you would normally do. Just by the bare minimum description of this man, the guy knows that it's Nathaniel, or in his mind, David, because that's what it was at the time of the arrest, because 15 years prior, he was the one that arrested him that first time. So he was like, I know exactly who you're talking about because I recognize him from the description you gave me. And it was also a child-based crime. So
wow.
Let's get him. And they went after him, and he got caught and he got placed under arrest.
Good.
I believe that the boy was physically unscathed. I don't think anything happened that actually caused him any physical damage, or at least not much. Psychological, I don't know, because I don't know what was said at the time. I don't know if anything else was done. All I know is that he sat on the boy in the car. But they obviously questioned Nathaniel about, I don't know, why did you sit on a boy in a car? Because that's a bit weird. At first, he says, I was just trying to find a way to get out of the rain, man. It's raining. So you get into a stranger's car and sit on a boy. It did not last long. and he eventually told them that they were right. He had actually intended on killing the boy. He somehow gets to make a deal with the Worcester County District Attorney that if he pled guilty to assault and battery, he would only get 2 years probation, which means not locked up, but only on the proviso that he moves to Great Falls, Montana to live with his mum.
So send him to a whole new state and probation for a repeat offender who
Repeat offender.
who offended as soon as he got, I cannot. Because that word, you know how now we're like, oh, you murdered someone or you murdered someone again, back to jail. Because wasn't that only a law that...
I think once you've actually served time,
Yeah.
and depending on what you've been charged for, like you are potentially a felon, like you are on a list at that point.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. So if you repeat, like...
You should be locked up.
Yeah, so
you should be locked up.
Hi.
Yeah. And also because like when you get released from prison anyway, you technically have like you're like on parole. So then you have an officer that you have to check in with all the time. And you're on that for a certain amount of time. Now I think they have a thing where they send you to like a halfway house where you can like reacclimate into society, whatever, but you still have like a parole officer. I don't know if maybe they just didn't have that back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. I genuinely don't know. It seems strange to me that they wouldn't.
Yeah. Like, oh, you've served time. Probation, go on.
Well, it seems weird. Actually, no, because that was, remember, this is 1991.
Holy crap!
They would have access to data by this point. Absolutely.
What?
Yeah. I mean, it goes without saying. Obviously, this numpty said, yes, Judge, I'll move to Montana. No problem. 2 years probation, easy. Because I've committed crimes on probation before, I can do it again. He didn't say that, but obviously that's what he was probably thinking. Anyway, February 6th of 1996, a boy named Zachary Xerxes Ramsey went missing while he was on his way to school. There were reports of people seeing a white four-door Toyota Corolla and him crying while being followed by an obese man. Zach would never be found. Ever. To this day, still not found. And because there's no body, it obviously makes it like a little bit harder to go into like full details about whatever happened and stuff, but there's more to that shortly. So Nathaniel would be found outside an elementary school in 1999, so about 3 years later, wearing a police-like jacket, carrying 2 cans of pepper spray and a toy gun. And he was actually seen doing this at least 3 times in the 1 week. He was most likely pretending to be a cop again, right? Mm-hmm. He's done it before. He'll do it again. So they charged him with impersonating a cop and carrying a concealed weapon, which is obviously not the toy gun. It must be the pepper spray, like maybe they like the mace or something. I'm not too sure. I really don't know. Based on that, they end up getting a search warrant for his house, his mum's house, because he was meant to go and live with his mum. He did it for a short time and then he moved out. So he's got his own apartment now. So they go and they search her place and they're looking for items that he may use to impersonate law enforcement. At this point, they're not necessarily thinking children. They're just thinking, oh, this guy likes to pretend to be a cop. They ended up finding 2 coats, one dark blue and another one with a toy badge on it, like a cop badge. And that was in the pocket. A second toy badge, a stun gun, and a baseball cap reading security enforcement. During that search, they also found a pulley on the ceiling. So for like a pull down, you know how like in America, some of like the attics and stuff will have like a pull down sort of system where a ladder or whatever comes down. Anyway, so they found a pulley in the ceiling of the kitchen where they found 2 albums of cutouts of children. So I think images that he saw in magazines, in newspapers, wherever he could find the kids, he would take those. There was also a document about knots and bondage and an article about autoerotic asphyxia. So you know what that is, hey?
Yeah, where they
tie themselves up and they choke out.
I like how you literally went and we both went.
Yeah.
Turned our heads to the side to, yeah. Because it's getting to that point of nearly choking to reach
orgasm.
Yeah. And you can very much die.
That's how that Kill Bill actor died. The one who played Bill.
Yeah, I was going to say a few actors have died from.
It failed and well...
Yeah.
So a couple of days later, they were granted a search warrant for documents and photographic material, obviously because of what they found in the pulley in the ceiling. And while they were searching the apartment, they found a list of 54 boys' names called Lake Webster, which were later identified as boys from his childhood in Massachusetts, including the 3 that he was convicted of abducting in the mid-70s. So what do you think this list is?
Oh no.
They also found the name Zachary Ramsey, followed by the word died,
Oh my gosh.
along with dozens of newspaper clippings following the Ramsey case. They also found 3,500 photos of children and also an undeveloped film containing sexual images of him and 3 unidentified boys. This guy was a monster.
That is, disgusting.
A former roommate that he had around that time would also come forward and say that he saw clothes in their house that matched the description of what Zach was wearing when he went missing. But obviously this was like well after the fact, so I don't know why that wasn't brought forward sooner, but it was. Oh, he also found a pair of bloody gloves too, but
Just don't talk about that. That's fine. Oh my gosh.
I do not know. But one thing that also kind of puts him in the area is not only did he kind of live there, but he also had access to his mother's car at the time because she was at a funeral, a 4-door Toyota Corolla.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
You are using your mother's car. That is not the worst part, obviously, but I'm just like...
Out of all of this, your mother's car?
But that's just, what kind of monster are you?
You're about to find out. So,
Oh god, there's more?
yeah, they found a notebook that had just a bunch of like made up characters. You know, like when you're a kid and you try to make your own language, whatever. Well, it had all of his own little secret writings in it, and they would eventually have it deciphered by the FBI because hello. And it spoke of Nathaniel, I believe, like in probably first person, whatever, about torturing and eating children. It also included recipes for different children's body parts to be included in it. The interesting thing that I didn't actually write down because I forgot because it was in a different article to the ones that I was writing it from, is that, and this is how this case actually caught my eye, is that he would have barbecues from time to time and invite people over for them, right? Like neighbors and that kind of stuff. And there was one neighbor that came forward later to complain that, and I think he even maybe said it to Nathaniel, that the meat tasted weird. They're like, this meat just does not taste right.
Like meat. Yeah.
And I think that he said it was like game or something. He went out and caught it himself or something like that. I'm not too sure. But they believe, or some people believe, that Nathaniel was actually eating the boys that were killed and even potentially feeding them to other people. Potentially. Again, grain of salt, not everywhere, but it is interesting nonetheless. On July 5th, 2000, he was charged with kidnapping and sexual assault, as well as the kidnapping and sexual assault of 3 other boys. He was originally charged with the murder of Zach Ramsey, but he pled innocent to all the charges, obviously Prosecutors announced that they would be seeking the death penalty. It was like, I would want him dead too.
Yeah, children.
Even singular, child.
Yeah.
Kill him. Children, really kill him. Yeah. Anyway, so Nathaniel would be prosecuted for the abduction and molestation of 3 boys and convicted of kidnapping, aggravated assault, and sexual assault, including the charges that he had tortured one of the boys and even hung him from the ceiling. I don't think that boy died, which is how they know that. So the trauma and all that kind of therapy that he would need growing up would be wild. He was not, however, found guilty of murdering Zachary because 1, the evidence, while quite clear, was still kind of circumstantial and they didn't have a body. And on top of that, something else happened which kind of made things like a little bit worse. I understand it, but it made it worse. So, you know, when you lose someone, you don't see their dead body or whatever. I mean, it's not like we've maybe lived this experience, but you can think about it. They're gone. They're probably not coming back. They're dead, but you don't want to believe they're dead. You just know in your stomach that they're alive because you are hopeful. Well, Zach's mother was hopeful, so she was testifying that Zach is not dead. And because she just believed in her heart of hearts that she would see her baby one day. And unfortunately, Zach was dead, but because she was so vehement that he wasn't dead, they decided, I believe the jury, they couldn't all agree on it, so they decided that they couldn't charge him for that murder, so he doesn't actually have a murder charge. Not a single one. So you remember Mary Patron?
Yes.
Well, she's no longer a 9-year-old. She's 36, and she recognizes this man as her assailant when she was a kid, when she was 9, and she came forward. Unfortunately, the statute of limitations does not last all of those years, so she couldn't actually raise an issue or a complaint with what happened to her.
That should not be a thing.
I know. Imagine having a statute of limitations on sexual assault or abuse or that kind of stuff. That's to me so wild.
It has taken me 10, 20, nearly 30 years to be able to talk about my trauma. I just can't.
Yeah, so she just couldn't do anything. Nathaniel was sentenced to 130 years in prison, and during this stint, he would try to appeal, obviously, many times, but each time they were denied until he was found dead in his cell on the 13th of April 2008. Side note, it wasn't actually until 2011 that Zachary would be declared as deceased.
Wow. Wow.
And you know what? You can bet your bum that it would have been at the protest of his mum. His mum was still alive, at least at that time, and she probably would have been very against that.
Hule dule.
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of today's case.
I didn't like that.
Well,
I didn't know about that guy. Now I do. Now I'm not happy about it.
and look, that's just what you're getting, so be grateful.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Goodbye.
Bye. Just to clarify and avoid confusion.
Don't touch my rolls.
Don't touch me, Dad. Don't touch me, Mum. Give me food.
Food man, don't touch me.
Give me food.
Mum, where's my papa?
My favorite papa. Were you talking about Carmen?
Carmen,
Yeah.
yeah. Fuck off. Fuck
Yeah.
you. Fuck him. Fuck them. Fuck you all. Fuck that. I'm done.
Slay. She came to serve. Serving.
Slay. Observation. I was trying not to burp.
Success.
Huzzah. Sorry, I thought you heard the weird noise my mouth made. And I just saw your face going like, I was like, that was in my mouth.
Sounded aggressive. Why do you think?
You tell me what you think right now.